Hello again, and welcome to my PICA 1/4 scale Spitfire Mark 9 build. This is Chapter 5. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of you who have watched the video, liked my videos, and subscribed to the channel. I do appreciate it. At this point in the build, the aircraft is now getting primed and ready for the final paint. The primer paint I am using is regular automotive paint, and this is applied using the trusty old rattle cans. I find it works well, applies easily, and it sands really well. As can be seen, the cockpit area is masked off, so not to get any paint in that area. Once the fuselage was completed, it was now time to turn my attention to the wings and the flaps and ailerons. With the wings being able to be separated, it was relatively easy to mount them onto a pair of sawhorses, and that avoided any contact on the wing during the spraying process. As can be seen also, I've made up a jig to support the ailerons and flaps during this priming operation. As I was using Robart hinge points for my hinges, it was relatively easy to use small dowels to make a holder so I could spray paint the ailerons and the flaps. With the first coat of primer now done, it was time to sand and find those inevitable areas that might need a little bit of touch-up. I had decided to incorporate panel lines into the fuselage and decided to use 1/32 chart tape to do the outlines. This was then sprayed with another coat, actually several coats, just over the lines, and then sanded through to the lines, then removed the lines, and voila, I had my panel lines. This process worked very well, and I also incorporated it into the wings. The next series of pictures showed how this turned out, and I was quite pleased with the panel lines and how they actually looked. In these pictures, you can clearly see the panel lines after the tape was removed. I was very impressed with that, and of course when the final paint was applied, they stood out quite nicely. I had some concerns with the tightly cowled engine, so I decided to put 4 holes in the fiberglass cowling to help exhaust some of that air in that area. These would be incorporated into the exhaust stacks later on. Next, I turned my attention to the cockpit details. Here you can see the instrument panel and my first mock-up of the control yoke. Here you can see my handmade throttle quadrant as well as the gun sight. This is one of the pictures that I used to model the actual Spitfire gun sight after. I had several of these so I could get a lot of good details. The following pictures show some more of the cockpit detail that I incorporated into this model. The 1/5 scale RAF pilot bust became a bit of an issue. There were 1/5 scale full body pilots, but at over $100 it was not something I contemplated for too long. In the end, I decided to purchase what was available, a German 1/5 scale pilot, and this was just the bust. In an effort to make the pilot look, well, more English-like, I had to do something. So, what could be more English than a handlebar mustache? So, out come my paintbrush, and there we have him. That was the last detail I incorporated into the cockpit area, and I was satisfied at this point. The wings now required some more work. Specifically, the hatch covers for the aileron and flap servos had to be fabricated and installed. Also, the panel lines, similar to the fuselage, it was time to apply those and apply the primer. Same process as before on the fuselage. There were also the minor imperfections found in the wing that had to be filled in with the automotive glazing compound and then sanded to smooth this ready for the final coat of primer. Before the final coat of primer was applied to the bottom of the wing, the scale accessories, the plastic accessories, would have to be installed. This would include the carburetor air intake scoop, the underwing radiator covers, and also the spent shell casing ejector chutes. During the fuselage construction, there was an option to install an air exhaust chute through the bottom of the fuselage and actually through the carburetor air intake. This chute also provided a very convenient spot for the spark plug wire to come through. With the wing now installed, you can clearly see the hole at the back of the carburetor air intake that will allow the hot air from the cowling area to escape. So now the bottom of the wing is basically finished. The only thing that remains, and that won't happen until after the final painting, is to open up the landing gear wheel bays. This right now is a perfect opportunity to leave it there to protect that area from overspray. Here are some more photos of the panel lines before the final primer coat is applied. With the panel lines now complete, it was time to turn my attention to other things. I wanted to incorporate the radio antenna behind the cockpit. However, because it would be prone to breaking off, I also wanted to make it removable. Utilizing the same method as I did for the wing cannons, I incorporated the antenna with a magnetic catch so you could just insert it in the hole and voila, it would stay there. When it was time to go home, pull it out, stow it, and no problems. Another modification that I decided to do was on the cowlings where the exhaust ports exited. On the full-size scale airplane, this area was open, or basically cut in the cowling, and the exhaust port stuck through it. I wanted this to be simulated on my model. So, using masking tape, some cardboard, and glazing putty, I was able to build up around this area and simulate the fact that this was actually a hole in the cowling. This was a relatively easy modification to the cowling and the front part of the fuselage, and actually did improve the looks in that area when it was completed. At this point, I am now ready to prime that area, and also it's time to install the canopy. Here the canopy is being installed, and the panel lines or framework of the canopy will be painted after. Here is a picture of the access panel that will allow me access to the engine switch, the radio switch, the charging ports, and also the fueling area. This next picture shows the bottom of the fuselage, the wing, the tail feathers, all in their final coat of paint. These last two pictures show the bottom of the fuselage all masked off in preparation for the top side painting. So this is a wrap for this chapter. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I suspect there'll probably be one more chapter which will also include the video of the final flight. I shouldn't say the final flight, but the first flight.